progress.
Welcome to a special meeting of the Cupertino City Council. Today is June 18th, 2021. Madam City Clerk, would you please conduct the roll call?
Councilmember Moore?
Here.
Councilmember Way?
Here.
Councilmember Willie?
Here.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Here.
Mayor Paul?
And I'm here. Our first item is a study session regarding the county's Office of Supportive Housing's consideration of a 2016 Measure A funded potential development located at a vacant parcel south of Interstate 280 and west of North Wolf Road. The APN number is 316-20088, and it was formerly the northernmost parking lot for the Valco shopping mall. Madam City Manager, I understand that we do have a representative from the Office of Supportive Housing to provide a presentation. Before we go to that, I'll just let members of the public know that we did not actually have a staff report for this item, and so we will simply be providing a presentation from the County Office of Supportive Housing. Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to hand it over to Director of Community Development, Ben Fu, and he will introduce the team who's going to be presenting both city and county information.
Thank you, Madam City Manager, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Ben Fu, Director of Community Development. With us here tonight, we have Consuelo Hernandez, Director of Office of Supportive Housing at the county. We also have John Martier, Senior Planner from staff that's been coordinating with the county as well. I believe Consuelo has a presentation for you, and we'll be, because she's on the phone, we'll be running that slideshow for you on our end. With that, Consuelo, I hand it off to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Consuelo Hernandez. Apologies. I hope you can hear me. The internet in my neighborhood went out, and I apologize. I hope I'm not interrupted. And I believe the staff was going to run the short presentation on my behalf. Thank you again for having me. If you might recall, a few months ago, the county came to provide a presentation to the City Council about a piece of property that, next slide, please, about the property that we refer to as the Outback as a potential opportunity for housing development. And through the course of our work, we were approached about the possibility of another site that might also be available for housing. And before moving forward, exploring that as a viable option, we wanted to give the council an opportunity to look at the parcel and give us any early input. We also heard very loudly at the last meeting your interest in producing units at certain income levels, the opportunity to provide ground floor spaces, for instance, childcare. And we made note of all of those statements, and we wanted to show you the parcel, the two parcels that we're looking at. This is the property that is at 10591 North De Anza Boulevard. We are in the middle of acquiring the property. It should officially transfer over to the county next week. In true government way, it typically takes a while for us to actually transfer the property. Nothing has changed from our previous discussions. The slide shows the exact same information we provided to you before in terms of the land use and zoning. Next slide, please. And this is the second piece of property that we're looking at. It has a regional shopping, commercial general, land use designation, and it's in the Valco shopping district special area. The parcel is significantly bigger. The Outback property is 1.51 acres, and this is closer to 5 acres. This parcel would require more work in terms of, from a land use perspective. It isn't currently zoned for housing, and so it would require a longer lead time before we can really start to think about what type of housing we would build there. And just a few other things, really just want to gauge the public input about the prospective opportunity that this parcel brings. And we are starting to form our community engagement strategy and have the opportunity to talk about both parcels before there's any official design or schematics We typically start with a listening session with the community, a stakeholder mapping to make sure that we're talking to everybody. And again, wanted to bring forward this information to you and give you an opportunity to provide us feedback before we take any official steps. At this point, I don't have direction from the board other than to acquire the parcel at the Outback property that I mentioned earlier. And that is all the information I have for you today. Happy to take questions and or have a discussion.
Thank you, Consuelo. And does anyone from our city council have a question to Consuelo with regard to either of these properties? Councilmember Willie.
So I actually think it would be a question for our public works. Well, put back that picture there. Very helpful to the question. So we see the site that's there, kind of like a pie shape. The route going around the lower right of that, is that going to be a transit loop of some type that residents could get on and off of a bus at that point? Do we know?
Would anyone from staff like to, or anyone from, or Consuelo, anyone have a sense of the loop that Councilmember Willie is referring to as a loop?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't believe it is, but I don't have the information, and I apologize. I'm working from my phone. It's hard to tell, but I don't believe so. I believe that there is ingress from that street only, and you, but it's not. I don't believe it's intended to be a bus loop type.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Willie. Next, we have Councilmember Moore, followed by Vice Mayor Chow. Councilmember Moore, you have the floor.
So I was wondering if the Valco developer has been contacted about this proposal. And I would like to see what their plans are for the loop road that was, the city owns the roadway easement, which goes around the previous TGI Fridays. And to my knowledge, the developer was trying to have the city vacate that through the ministerial approval of the SB 35 plan. So that really does need to be worked out, because I think that's some important easy access to the site. And referring to the Valco project, I would also suggest that the county look at the Valco specific plan draft EIR for this site for some relevant information on page 79 of the draft EIR for the Valco specific plan. They address air quality. So there is a portion up in the northwest corner of that lot which has significant air quality impacts from the freeway. So that would need to be addressed. And I'm not saying it can't be mitigated, I'm just pointing it out. And the other issue you have is noise. The noise contours are quite significant for this entire property that you're looking at. And you want to look at page 209 of the Valco specific plan draft EIR for that. And overall, whatever is planned, you know, and I am curious what kind of density that you're looking for dwelling units per acre for this area, because to my knowledge, things have changed on that site, and it might not have a designation right now. So I'm curious what you would be looking at. And then it would need to coordinate with the Valco SB 35 plan, so it all works together. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. Next, we have Vice Mayor Chow. Vice Mayor Chow, you have the floor.
Hi, thank you. So is the county now looking at purchase, acquire both parcels?
Thank you for the question, Vice Mayor. No, not at this time. This property would be available to the county under a below market rate ground lease for $1 a year. So we wouldn't be buying the property. It's being made available to us at a below market rate if we are able to develop housing here.
Interesting. As I remember, this property has some easement agreement with the city because there was a plan to develop light rail along 280 at the time, so there were easement reserved for that. Do we know if that still exists? If it does, then how much is the developable area?
Thank you for the question, Vice Mayor. We don't have all of those details. It's so preliminary that we wanted to come to you first. For instance, this information that was shared by Councilmember Moore is exactly what we were looking for in terms of, you know, what are the things that we should look at before we seriously consider the parcel for housing. We have not started any preliminary work on density, for instance, really just trying to look at the opportunity. And wanted to let you all know that that we're looking at it and hear any comments or questions, suggestions that you have for us before we spend any more time or money trying to assess the reality of the parcel.
Okay, then here's a question. I think there are state laws that it's being considered that apply to surplus properties owned by the city or public agencies. I don't know, would that apply to rental properties of a public agency? So if the county was able to lease the land for $1, would then that kind of state law apply to this property?
The portion that is not public, the portion that is owned by the private owner, that would not apply, Vice Mayor. We would have to look at the easements, which again, we have not we have not gone that far in terms of diligence to determine what the easements are and what portion of the property is developable, but it would not fall under the Surplus Land Act.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I certainly think this would be a great location for BMR housing. And I think many of the issues raised by Councilmember Moore could be mitigated. Then, yeah, sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. Next, we have Councilmember Wei.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. I thank you, Consuela, for coming to us. So the preliminary estimate is you would like the Cupertino City Council's consideration. Is that what you're looking for today? And my second question is, if that's the case, if it's positive, what's the timeline in studying this this piece of land and to answer all the questions that Councilmember Moore raised and all the legitimate questions about exit roads and things like that?
Great question, Councilmember. We would look at probably a 6-month time frame to do community engagement and to really assess the parcels. Because we do have the other site under control, and there is a cost for maintaining that parcel while it's vacant, and we don't want to create a nuisance by having a vacant piece of property. So we would look at both through a community engagement lens and making sure that we're considering all of the impacts, whether that's air quality, noise, traffic, access. We would look at all of that. I imagine that would take us about 6 months, at which point we would, I think at that point, come back to you with the information that we've collected.
Okay, thank you. I have one more follow-up question. Mayor Paul, can I ask the question?
Certainly.
This piece of land, probably if the study is positive, it probably needs a general plan amendment from our city, right? Because currently it's not zoned for residential.
That's correct, Councilmember Wei.
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you, Councilmember Wei. So this is a question for both our staff and Consuelo. So this parcel here that we have in front of us on the screen is approximately, how big is it? Was it 5 acres that you said?
That is correct, Mayor. It's about 5.6.
And the shopping center property off of De Anza Boulevard that you were looking at earlier, approximately how many acres is that?
1.5.
1.5. Okay, so it's at least 3 to 4. It's at least 3 times larger than the other site. Would your expectation be that there would be an opportunity to put more potentially BMR units on this site as compared to the other site?
If we're looking at the size alone, Mayor, and if we use the same density assumptions, yes. But again, if we think about the noise and the air quality, maybe it does make more sense to focus on the portion of the parcel that is away from the noise, which would mean that it is less than the 5 acres that are there now. That is part of what we would start to study.
I see. And then with regard to the time frame of making those types of determinations, would that be folded into the 6-month estimate, or could that perhaps be brought back a little bit earlier with regard to the feasibility of usage of space and densities?
Absolutely, Mayor. If we're purely looking at feasibility options without any schematics or massing, we can definitely bring that back in less than 6 months.
Okay, great. Thank you, Consuelo. Did staff have anything to add with regard to the questions that I just asked in terms of densities and about how long it would take to work with county to evaluate these issues?
No, Mr. Mayor. It all depending on the county's process and timing. We'll certainly be participating in that process and providing guidance and assistance.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Director Fu. I'll go ahead and go to members of the public. Councilmember Moore and Councilmember Willie, I do see your hands are raised. We'll go to members of the public and then we'll bring it back to council. So members of the public, I do see caller 0741. I believe that's Jennifer Griffin with your hand raised. Janet Van Zoren, you also have your hand raised. And so I'll remind the members of the public, you have 3 minutes to speak. And by the time that the first member of the public is concluded speaking, you'll need to have your hand raised in order to be called on. And so caller 0741, Jennifer, welcome.
Hello. Yes, I've killed another tablet. The microphone gets shut off by Zoom, so we're doing this until we can buy another tablet. This piece of history. Sorry, I'm going to take my phone and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
This piece of property has a history in Cupertino. It is next to the wall. And there are concerns about height on that property. It's also, I believe it is not currently owned by the owner. It's not owned by Sand Hill. I believe it's East West Bank was the owner at some point. But I think that we need to go back and look at the history of this property. There were great concerns about anything over 3 to 4 stories. Also, as far as I understand, there is currently a 1-story, 12-foot height limit on this entire property. This has come up before over the last 15, 20 years. It is a problematic site. I'm also concerned, I understand if we want to put BMR housing here, but if we're going to be putting in a lot of housing that are going to require people who are being housed for the first time just off the streets, other groups of people may have drug or alcohol issues. We don't know. There is going to have to be supportive services on site. That is a requirement, especially since having the possibility of having 2 supportive housing projects in Cupertino. This area is very tucked back. There is no bus access back here. currently we don't know what's happening to the rest of Valco because of Sand Hill. And these people don't even have any way to get out to Stevens Creek Boulevard. And if SB 1401 passes, they will have no cars. So I really think we need to have a big discussion about this. I live on the east side, and I will tell you right now, we have had so much drama going on because of Valco, because of potential building, that if you all are planning on putting something in here, we need to make sure there is engagement and communication with the public. Believe me, because of Scott Wiener's housing bills, we do not need any more drama. I appreciate, but please make sure you have supported services. Again, this is near the Ginepra Serra Trail Apple is building. Will supportive services have folks come and start camping on the trail? God bless them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Our next speaker is Janet Van Zoren, and Janet is followed by Connie Cunningham, Charlene Lee, and someone identified by Vigi34. Welcome, Janet. And Janet, you just put your hand down, so I'll find you. Okay, here we go. Welcome. We can hear you. Oh.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. I think it's wonderful if we can get more housing that's at the affordability levels that this project seems to be aiming toward. And I'm hoping that the details will be able to be worked out. And I'm very happy to hear that a number of the things that might be of concern are being raised already so that they can be examined and dealt with and hopefully worked out. My question, though, is one with regard to the timing. This is the second project that the county has brought forth for our discussion and for our temporary approval, at least. And I don't think it's on the city work plan. And I'm just wondering how that works out and whether or not any of the other projects that are already on the city work plan would be delayed because of the work that would be necessary to do on these projects. So I'm not against these projects at all. I think it's a good idea if we can make it work. But I do have some concerns about the timing and the impact on staff time and things related to that. The dollars, do we need to make a financial commitment to these projects? Will that use up all the money in the housing fund that might have gone to other projects that the community is already trying to work on? Thank you very much.
Keep the timer running video on this. Janet, I'll take that as direction since you do have the floor with regard to following up on your questions. And Madam City Manager, feel free to answer as well. You know, I consider this actually as part of our work plan because we do have affordable housing sites listed as a work plan item to examine, as well as other items related to affordable housing and homeless support services. With regard to your other item, I'll let our city manager just speak to it, but I think it is certainly compatible with what we're trying to achieve this upcoming fiscal year.
That's great. I'm happy to hear that.
Since this potentially would largely impact the work program portion that's in community development and housing, I'll ask Director Fu to respond as best he can with this.
Thank you, Madam City Manager. Mr. Mayor, if I may. It's true that this is not technically on the upcoming work program, but the way we see it is that it's also an agency-driven project. So we're happy to, as we always do, provide assistance and guidance and support.
Great, thank you, Director.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Our next speaker is Connie Cunningham, followed by Vigi4, followed by Charlene Lee. Welcome, Connie.
Oh, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and council members, and also Consuelo from the Santa Clara County. I am on the Housing Commission, and I am very interested in this type of project. It's very interesting as we have gone through the RENA review that this size of project is very good because it's not less than a half, and it's not larger than 10 acres, and it's also not already built up with other things that have to be, you have to wait for them to, I don't know, sell or move out or something like that. So it's very exciting in that sense. Also, we had a recent presentation from Destination Home where they talked about the fact that funding is not the issue here, that what we really need to find in collaboration with the county are locations. And so it sounds like this is a really good thing because it's a location, but funding may well be available through other sources, which were described to us during that other session just on Tuesday, I think it was. So that is all to the good. And the fact that some of the issues already raised have been partially answered by the fact that you don't have to use the entire site. And that, of course, this is so early in the process that figuring out how to get a road through there or dealing with air quality and all that, there are things that can be worked on. So it sounds very exciting to me. I appreciate this opportunity to give some feedback to the council and to express my very strong interest, although I'm speaking just for myself, but I know that we do have locations that even members of the council have asked us to look into. So thank you very much to the county and also to the council for this opportunity. That's
Thank
all.
you, Connie. Our next speaker is designated by Vigi34, followed by Charlene Lee. Welcome, Vigi34. So the speaker designated Vigi34, you'll need to unmute yourself. We can't hear you, so there might be a device.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Yes, welcome.
Oh, okay. Yes, basically, what I have to say is that on November 15, 2020, Deputy Jeffrey Real Badge 2406 intruded my house. He did not get arrest warrant and rejected to state why he...
Excuse me, I'm going to have to cut in. This item is for item 1. And so if you don't have a comment with regard to item 1, which is a discussion regarding the county's Office of Supportive Housing's parcel here, you will need to not provide this particular comment. And so let me ask you, do you have material pertinent to this item here?
Yes, I do have that elegant hair salon at the Anza Boulevard and McLean told residents of Cupertino Su Zhang was not a registered voter, but she received ballot and she voted.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to move on because this is not pertinent to the item. I'll go ahead and go to our last speaker with a hand up. That is Charlene Lee. And I'll repeat that this needs to be related to the topic of our study session. Welcome, Charlene.
Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
You need to be recalled because you reject us to have freedom of speech. The police issue is the most important thing. And there has an election fraud last year because you cannot, we have right to put police issue.
Do you have any commentary?
We can recall you because you reject to put the police issue into agenda.
And let me tell the speaker, you're certainly entitled to your opinion. However, here, procedurally, we're dealing with a study session item. Again, that's related to the county's Office of Supportive Housing's attempt to receive some feedback from our community here on this particular parcel. And so I'll take it back to our city council at this point. Councilmember Moore, you had your hand raised, followed by Councilmember Willie. And so Councilmember Moore, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. So a little bit further concern for this particular site is that I would make sure that the owner provides you or you somehow acquire a phase 2 environmental site assessment to know what the condition of the soil is, because as we've progressed through the SB 35 project, we've found that the soil was contaminated there, and I would be concerned about who will be responsible should there be any contamination on this particular site. And I would also turn your attention to the Valco Town Center SB 35 project approved plans, which are also available on the website, and they'll show you what is proposed for access roads there, and that might help with your design. As to the noise, the Hyatt Hotel, I should say, is very close to the freeway as well, and they were able to mitigate the noise quality for those hotel rooms, and you can put in triple pane glass for the freeway facing windows and take care of that. So it's not that it is something that you can mitigate. It's not it doesn't block the project from moving forward. So I think I was kind of toying with the numbers. If you had 20 dwelling units per acre, you could end up with 100 units. I'm slightly concerned about having 1,201 BMR units on the Valco site, and then you would be adding another 100 more at kind of concentrated at one location. That's a little concerning, and I would like to hear what other people think about that. Is that appropriate? How is that going to impact the rest of the development that's there? And you're also going to have 1.81 million square feet of office coming in, so about 7,500 office employees would be there. And there's the SB 35 project provides 2,402 residential units. 1,201 of those are market rate, and the other 1,201 are below market rate. So I'd like to see how that would balance out in this area. It almost seems as though you're really short on market rate units at this location. But I'm excited to see BMRs come into the city. I think that's great. I appreciate the owner of this property that they are willing to make this swap. I think that's very it's very interesting, and I like the idea that you can get many more BMR units. If they do that, I would also be concerned about how long that lease is, and just make sure that the county gets a good deal out of it too. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. Our next hand is raised from Councilmember Willie, followed by Chow.
Yeah, so I'd like to just back up just a little bit, focusing on all the technical aspects. What the one resident said about our previous study session and destination home, I agree. The huge obstacle is in finding sites, and so the fact that we now have potentially 2 sites, I really think we should take advantage of the opportunity and do whatever we can to explore this and facilitate it. Now back to the technical side. I really appreciate the comments from Councilman Moore. And so with regard to those, I would ask that we direct city staff to quickly look into those and provide a fairly brief written report on, the access, the noise based on the existing CEQA that's been done, the pollution, leaving those for the supported housing to put on their list when that's not what they do normally, I would expect, but yet our staff are fully aware of this area of Cupertino, and I think could provide those answers fairly quickly maybe not a final pass, but a first pass, so that then the Office of Supported Housing could come to an understanding of what makes sense sooner, rather than leaving them to explore these site-specific issues. And so that's my comment, is we should seize the opportunity as best we can and provide as much support as we possibly can, so that maybe this can become a reality. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Willie. Next, we have Vice Mayor Chow.
I Yeah, certainly welcome BMR housing project on this site, but at the same time, I know that that's adjacent to a single-family neighborhood, separated by a wall, and that neighborhood has always been concerned that the height of the building that's next to their neighborhood. So I think at the same time we are, in case we're zoning this to housing, we need to have strong objective standards that could mitigate the impact to that neighborhood. But at the same time, just this morning, we reviewed a bill proposed this year that would forbid the city from considering adverse impact to this physical impact caused by a development. If that were the case, I think we need to think very carefully how we zone the property, so that we don't tie our hands, and then the residents next to the property would be adversely impacted as a result. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. And next we have Councilmember Wei.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. So I'd like to add on to Councilmember Willie's comments. This is, this opportunity needs to be explored for sure. And Councilmember Moore and all of us has a lot of questions. So this is in the study, but I would hope that our city, we have a good mind. We would like to explore BMR housing, which is so much needed, that we would spin a positive with it, and then meet up the concerns head on, and then work on it. Like Councilmember Moore says, the noise, it can be mitigated. So I'm very excited about this project because it has bigger land, but it needs a lot of coordination, a lot of research. But I hope that we have a solution-minded attitude to it, so that we could head on meet all the challenges and somehow could make it work, unless it cannot be mitigated. So that's what I would hope, that our city and our residents would have that mind. As to one of the questions about Councilmember Moore's concern, which is really legit, we already have 1201 units of BMR units in the Valco town SB 35 project. This one would add probably 20 units times the acre times maybe 100%, 80% density bonus for 100% BMR housing. So it is more units, but I would think that would actually provide services together. So we can also put a positive spin to it. So I'm hoping that we could somehow, have a positive attitude in studying this and head on meet all the concerns and really work it through. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wei. I think with regard to this site here, it's really important to recognize that it is a fairly substantial amount of space. But I think that it's really good right now to gather these input points. It's absolutely, true that your perspective on things matter, but the details matter more, right? I mean, if you're not paying attention to really significant potential impacts, then you're really just asking for trouble down the road. So I thank our, colleagues and members of the public that point this out. We have very, very interested members of the public and an engaged council. When I look at the veranda project that is across Stevens Creek Boulevard from this general area, I know that we had consistent concerns. I was with that project from beginning to end on my stint in council here, And we had similar concerns, and I'm convinced that those concerns raised over time really made this project much better. So my requests are these. I think that we should be looking at this site with an eye on having really effective quality. And it's not just a matter of quality of the type of project we deliver, but also thinking about the problems that we're trying to address and in kind of underlying fashion, what kind of support can we be providing? We've done an excellent job working with the County Office of Supportive Housing and nonprofit organizations. And so thank you very much, for our ability to transition a number of our unhoused residents along Wolf in this past year to permanent housing. And I think we should really try to extend upon that. At the same time, if there are significant resources in our community that have an interest in seeing this go forward, and I truly believe that all of us have an interest in seeing the issues regarding affordable housing met in a way that is both sincere and effective. I think if you're talking about a 100% affordable housing project, there is really no argument with regard to the overall numbers. And so I would love to see very significant support, not just monetary, but also with regard to the innovation and the thinking and those types of resources that could be leveraged. And let's make it a truly fantastic project worthy of Cupertino branding. So those are my comments. Vice Mayor Chow, you still have your hand up. Did you want to make some wrap-up comments at this point? Okay, so your hand is down. I don't see any other hands up at this point. And so with that, I will thank Consuelo. Thank you for all that you do and for being out here this evening. You were loud and clear, by the way, and so no worries on the connection over your phone. And we'll bid you a great evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, have a good evening.
Thank you. Our next item in this special meeting, we only have two this evening, is under ordinances and action items. It's item number 2. It's a consideration of authorization for me as mayor to sign a letter to the County of Santa Clara, to the Board of Supervisors regarding city support of the board granting the 1972 Ridgeline Protection Easement enforcement rights to be shared with Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District and the county. And Madam City Manager, would you like to introduce the staff providing the presentation here tonight?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Roger Lee, our Director of Public Works, has a very short presentation for the council.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and council members. Starting in late 2018, Lehigh submitted several applications to the county to amend and expand the use of its property. These plans have subsequently been consolidated by Lehigh and continue to propose several changes to include the modification of the 1972 Ridgeline Protection Easement held by the county. Specifically, Lehigh would like to lower the ridgeline by about 100 vertical feet. The city submitted written comments to the county in early 2019 on this issue, wherein we expressed that proposed changes are a significant departure from past approvals and that these changes raise a grave concern to the city. So to introduce why it is recommended to support approval of item 22 of the County Santa Clara Board of Supervisors at the regular meeting next Tuesday on the 22nd, it is good to start with the perspective of the ridgeline. Now, this aerial shows the city limits in the dark lines there, and due to the size of the Lehigh facility, which is where you can see my cursor here, specifically the main quarry pit, these areas are easy to see. The red line drawn here is the 1972 Ridgeline easement that was granted to the county from Lehigh. And due to its elevation, this ridgeline is widely visible, and any changes will have an impact. So this aerial just zooms in more clearly to shows the ridgeline again. And just note that the current contour of the ridgeline in this slide here, because in this next slide you'll see it even more depicted as to the original condition. So this red line here is similar to what was shown in the previous slides. And this image came from Lehigh's 2019 application to the county. It was just some supplemental information that was part of the reclamation plan amendment. And you can see this light blue line is where Lehigh is proposing to the county to have the new Ridgeline be located. And if you look here in the cross section, it's a good way to look at it as well. So the dashed line here is the current Ridgeline in each of these three cross sections. And then this line below it is what is being proposed. And so this 100 feet that is vertical feet that's being chopped off the top is this distance right here, because the scale is pretty big. Each line is 200 feet. And then this is just the last slide, gives you another view of it. The red line is the existing ridge line as we see today. This blue line is what is being proposed. And this hatched area is the layback area that Lehigh would excavate and get resources and create the new ridge line. So in conclusion, the county partnering with MidPen will help strengthen the enforcement of the easement. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lee. Are there any questions of the presentation and staff? Councilmember Moore, you have your hand raised. You have the floor.
Great. Thank you. Director Lee, I was wondering if you could go back to the cross sections. Yes, great. All right. I just wanted to point out what I think they're after, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to be this is about getting to the gray area in the cross sections, which is the cement grade limestone. Is that your understanding as well?
It is. This next slide, it also shows the arrows to the limestone reserve that they're pointing to get access as well. So I think that does marry up with your observation on the previous slide, Councilmember Moore.
Okay, thank you. And I was watching the press conference yesterday, and Supervisor Simidian was saying something like, it gave me the impression that the height was actually going to be more like 400 or 500 feet dropped, and I wasn't quite sure how that was arrived at.
Yeah, we don't have a good scale here. I know it's about 20 acres, this cross-hatched area here. It's 100 feet vertically, and I've heard that it's up to 400 plus feet wide horizontally.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then they're showing this huge backfill section, the brown area, and would that be the fill that they're saying takes 30 years to fill and 600 truck trips per day? Is that that area?
Yeah, they are proposing in their 2019 reclamation plan amendment to fill in the main quarry pit, and that was with imported materials.
Okay, and I was kind of making this assumption that they're going to be 600 truck trips per day. How many trucks are going to be on the road? It seemed like you're going to have a very, very steady stream of traffic, like one every minute, all day long for 30 years in order for this to have happen. And right now I'm going to assume that those are diesel trucks, and so this is pretty significant. So is the point of having this joint agreement is to do what? Aside from, is it to stop this from happening, this plan, so that they can't reduce the top? Is that the main idea? And if that's the case, then their backfill, actually looks like the backfill would decrease a little bit, not sure.
Well, Mid-Peninsula Open Space, they have the area just here to the north, and so then they have a sole mission of preserving, this area. And so the county has a good thought that them having the enforcement responsibility of the easement that the county already possesses would just help ensure that that is exactly what happens in the future.
Okay, and so the preservation of the top of this easement would render the excavation of that limestone, it would be unavailable because you're going to cause a slide if you were to undermine the existing ridge, right? So they wouldn't be able to do that. But also, as you look down the slope, there's further excavation, which it looks like that wouldn't happen. So I'm kind of curious about what the ultimate amount of backfill that they would need to do if they aren't pulling the top off. It almost seems like there'd be less. I'm not sure. And I have to say, just from glancing at where they took these sections, I'm not sure that I agree with where they took the cross sections, particularly B and C. I might personally have taken the cross sections a little bit differently than they did. It almost, particularly with C, it looks better than some of the other areas where they could have done that, just as an observation. All right, but thank you, Roger.
I don't see any other hands raised. I'll ask a couple of questions. So with regard to this easement that was granted by the property owner in 1972, how long does it last?
Well, it's my understanding it runs with the land, so it's indefinite.
So it's a permanent easement, correct?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Yeah, I believe your understanding is correct. And with regard to what is the subject matter of the easement, there's a property right with the public that essentially preserves the ridgeline. Is that also correct?
Yes, that's the intent of it. Through their activities, there's been some landslides that have degraded the easement already.
Okay. And so can you give us a sense of how much land we're talking about if we're talking about 100 feet off the vertical top of the ridge line? What are we talking about in terms of acreage and square yards of material that would be moved out of this area?
I recall the 20 acres in surface area being mentioned, and the county did estimate with they did estimate how many cubic yards it was, and I'm drawing a blank what it was. I know they were saying it was like 20,000 cement truck loads full of material to try to put it in, a qualitative term.
Okay, and so when we're talking about 100 vertical feet, is it correct that the actual on the ground length is more along lines of 400 or even 500 feet? Does that sound familiar?
Oh, in terms of how you chase the slope up to the ridge line?
That's correct. Up the slope.
Yeah, I heard it was a total of 400 feet in width, and in some points here, you're chasing that all the way up. So that very easily could be 400 feet in this area here to chase that slope up to the ridge.
I think we're actually talking about 4,000 feet in width, and so the elevation up the slope would be more along the lines of the 400 to 500 feet, which I think is how you get the 20 acres of potential ground space that would be removed. So I was part of the press conference yesterday, and so I heard these numbers a few times, but I wanted to, verify with the public that this is quite a significant amount of space, and it is something that the property owner has agreed. We're not asking for anything that the public is not already owning, in essence. Isn't that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I don't see any other hands raised from our council for clarifying questions. I'll go on to members of the public. Right now, I have 3 hands raised. They are from Rhoda Fry, Lisa Warren, and Charlene Lee. And I'll remind the members of the public that you'll need to raise your hand by the time the first speaker gets done speaking in order for me to call on you. Please direct your comments towards this item. and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Welcome, Rhoda.
Good evening, council members. Sending a letter of support to the County Board of Supervisors agenda item number 22 on June 22nd, 2021 is a brilliant idea. Thank you. We have more work to do. This action protects a small portion of the ridgeline. Adjacent to the quarry pit is a 218-acre mining waste area that needs to be restored to its original height per the approved 2012 plan. You can see the edge of it as a brown line on the ridgeline. Lehigh's 2019 proposal would raise its height by 160 feet, leaving a new 260-foot difference between the mined ridgeline and the waste area. We must ask the county to assess how much fill needs to be on site to fill the quarry, to protect water quality, and to serve as a foundation to buttress our crumbling ridgeline per the 2012 approved plan. So that ridgeline has been crumbling over the years, 50 to 75 feet already we've lost. Now, Lehigh intends to process aggregate on site and export rock to Stevens Creek Quarry. If there's a deficit, they're going to have to truck in imports. We also must make sure that the county has required Lehigh to secure sufficient funds to reclaim the site toward a secondary beneficial use as required by law. Once again, otherwise we'll be left with the cost of remediation. As it is, Lehigh is excluding the industrial site and a landslide above Permanente Creek. Which brings me to an urgent request for you to authorize staff tonight to write one of your well-researched letters to the Planning Commission on June 24, 2021, regarding Stevens Creek Quarry importing materials from Lehigh. Among other things, the quarry is polluting the creeks that lead to the reservoir across the street. So Permanente Quarry pollutes the Permanente watershed, Stevens Creek Quarry pollutes the Stevens Creek watershed. The Water Board has just issued new requirements at Stevens Creek Quarry that will take years to implement. The county should require a CEQA environmental review of this activity, and zoning for mining or incidental usage should not be applicable. Please read my comment that I sent earlier via email for details, and thanks for listening to my urgent request. Good night.
Thank you, Rhoda. Our next speakers are Lisa Warren, Charlene Lee, Connie Cunningham, Susan Moore, and welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I think just for a clarification, you probably got it, but Rhoda, I believe, was talking about sending a letter to Planning Commission, the County Planning Commission, not our own Planning Commission. So I just wanted to interject that, and I think it's a good idea for all the reasons she said. And other than that, short and sweet, it's pretty much a no-brainer to have you, Darcy, write this letter and sign it in big, bold letters. And I tuned into the press conference yesterday, so I'm aware of what's going on, and we got to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Our next speaker is Charlene Lee. Welcome, Charlene.
Hi, the corporate representative Baker in Manger and Mayor Darcy Palm want to hide this test, and you let Sherry know.
Charlene, I will ask you.
Have a corporate representative Baker, and you keep hide this criminal case, and we need to recall all of those.
I will need to go on. This is not related to item number 2. And so our next speaker is Connie Cunningham. Welcome, Connie.
Good evening, again, Mayor and council members. I very much support the idea of your writing a letter in support of this activity for the county. And I appreciate and thank you for taking that action. Listening to Rhoda Fry, I've heard a lot from her in the past, and she's very well versed in what is going on with Lehigh. And so although I'm not familiar with it specifically, I think I can, without too much trouble, support her request for the other action she's asking for you. And thank you again for taking this action. Good night.
Thank you, Connie. Our next and final speaker is Susan Moore. Welcome, Susan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey, Susan Moore here, and I want to thank you, Mayor Paul and City Council members. This is a topic which is dear to my heart. I've lived in this area, Los Altos, Mountain View, and Cupertino since 1962. And Lehigh there's so many issues with Lehigh. And the way I think about it is it's like the death of 1,000 cuts. It's the ridgeline, it's the pollution of the water and the air, it's the health issues, it's the traffic, it's the sneakiness and the disregard for the community and your fellow human beings. So I really appreciate this. It's short and sweet, but it's the beginning, and good luck and thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. I do have one more hand raised from the public, but unfortunately, let me take it to council. There's one member of the public with a hand raised. Do you mind giving the relatively early time, to allow this member of the public to speak on this? I see head nods from at least two. Okay, so Jennifer, item number 2. So we will allow you to speak on this. Welcome.
Can you hear me? Yeah, Darcy, Mayor, our dear Mayor, I'm, as you're aware, I put my hand up on the phone way long time ago. So we need to make sure that when we're doing this, the call-ins on Zoom, that we're checking to make sure that there aren't phone call-ins. I understand Zoom is an evolving drama, but I am ordering a new tablet. Yes, I will just make a comment about Lehigh. When you come up 85 from South Valley back up toward Cupertino, the ridgeline looks like a souffle that collapsed. It is not the same height it was when I was a child. I'm very concerned that if we do anything else up there to lower that ridgeline, we're going to have the whole mountain collapse. I'm also not real happy with the way the retention pond came out by the cemetery. So when we're starting to have large amounts of earth movement up there, that quarry's been there since the 40s, I guess. I understand we're trying to make a living, but let's not move the ridgeline anymore. I'm really worried about things collapsing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. We'll bring it back up to council. Would anyone like to entertain a motion for the recommended action at this time? Councilmember Moore, you have, actually, Councilmember Way had her hand raised first, followed by Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Way?
So moved.
Would you like to second, Councilmember Moore?
Second. However, I have a question. It sounded almost as though what Rhoda Fry was describing is that and maybe someone can correct me on this, but it sounded as though there's a possibility that there's some connection between this plan from Lehigh and the importing of aggregate to the Stevens Creek quarry. And I was wondering if that's the case, do we have an opportunity to have a segue into that issue in order to look into the June 24th meeting, which I was looking at that earlier today. The possible action that they have, it's item 5 on their June 24th meeting, is to accept or reject the CEQA exemption and grant or deny the zoning interpretation. And I'm curious how we can handle that issue. Is that something that we're going to need to have another council meeting for, or what?
Okay, so our city attorney has our microphone off, and did you want to speak to that? We should probably check in with legal first on the...
Sure. Yeah, the city's been involved in the zoning determination for a long time, and there's letters that we've written that are available on the city's webpage if people want to look into this issue. If council wishes to discuss that item by the county, I recommend that it be noticed separately, but certainly I think the issue before you now about whether to support the county's proposed transfer of enforcement heights of the ridgeline, that is an issue that ripples to other things. And so you can note that that other hearing is occurring as a reason to support this action if you'd like to do so.
And thank you. And I certainly do support this letter for the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. Next, we have Vice Mayor Chow, followed by Councilmember Willie.
Thank you for bringing this item in a special session so that we can make the deadline for next week. My question is regarding the reclamation claims for. I think we are concerned they will not be able to restore things that they take down or restore the natural beauty, and now they are applying for a new plan. Is there a way to get like a bond beforehand that they need to contribute every year to make sure there is funding at the end to do what they promised to do, that they won't just go bankrupt at the end or orchestrate one so that there won't be money left to restore this site? Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. Did anyone from staff want to address the question?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I can provide some information. I'm failing to recall the acronym, but it's like a FACE, financial assurance something, that Lehigh, it is a requirement, and the county does have financial assurance from them. And it's like $50 or $60 million. I mean, there's some think that's not enough, and that's another issue. But there are financial assurance that the site can be reclaimed when the operations stop.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Chow and Director Lee. We have Councilmember Willie next. You have the floor.
Yeah, so I'm real happy that we have some residents that are really staying on top of this. You know, they are a very important set of eyes as to what's going on. And I also like the comment from Rhoda about, you know, the benefits. I think it was Rhoda, maybe it was Councilman Moore, but the potential benefit if a sequel review could be done to really detail out more of the specifics. When we hear $50 to $60 million, wow, that sounds like a lot of money. But if you're talking about 30 years of truck traffic, 600 trucks a day, I don't think that's $50 to $60 million is going to last all that long. Oh, it might last 10 years. That's only 1/3 of the time span. Filling in a pit would seem to be pretty straightforward. Trying to restore a ridge line would be massive. So I do think we absolutely need to send this letter. I think we should at least try to request that a sequel review would be done, if at all possible, even if it had to be at the county's expense, to really detail out the amount of work for a real restoration and what it would cost. The 30 years of 600 trucks per day, to me, just is massive. So I definitely support this, and I really want to thank the residents for, you know, continuing to keep this issue, you know, alive, because without it, it's very possible, you know, it would have just continued without any significant balance. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Woolley. And Councilmember Moore, you still have your hand raised. Did you want to make some wrap-up comments at this time?
Sure. I just want to mention a little bit about the $50 million. I, too, am concerned about it. It isn't just the truck traffic. If you go to the GeoTracker website, which is the water boards, and you do their search, just type in Lehigh and Santa Clara for the county and click on environmental data. You'll find the boreholes, the groundwater monitoring wells, sedimentation basin, stream or creek sampling points, and it's an alphabet soup of contamination out there. And so it's not just a matter of filling the pit with clean fill, it's what's going on with the soils all over the site, what's in the east materials storage pile and the west materials storage pile and other sites, because it's been mined since 1903. A lot of different activities happened there. So there's more than just the physical act of moving the soil to fill up the pit. There's what are you going to do with the contamination that's there? Where is it going to be shipped to? Is it going to be used to fill in the pit or not? So there's a lot of details to get ironed out, and it sounds very expensive to me. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. And again, I thank my fellow council members for their work on this, as well as the members of the public who have put in a lot of time and concern over environmental issues. And so I'll go ahead with a motion by Councilmember Way, seconded by Councilmember Moore, to ask our city clerk to conduct a roll call vote. Madam City Clerk, would you please conduct that vote?
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Well, thank you very much. This is the end of our special meeting. We are adjourned. We do have another special closed session, and I'll remind members of the public that I've committed on the fourth Tuesdays of every month this year to make sure that the council is apprised of litigation liabilities affecting the city of Cupertino. And so we are convening that closed session on Tuesday evening at 6:15 p.m. I believe that notice should come out on Monday morning. So thank you very much. We hope that you have a wonderful weekend. I bid you a wonderful Juneteenth, federal holiday that is going to be recognized for the first time tomorrow. There is an event at the county fairgrounds that Vice Mayor Chow will be presenting a certificate of appreciation to an organization that has been holding the celebration for 40 years now, right here in Santa Clara County. And I believe that should start at 3:00 p.m. in the afternoon. So thank you very much. Again, have a great evening, and we bid you a wonderful weekend.